Hello and welcome back, everybody. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm joined by Brian Kelly. We got the tech problems sorted out. Welcome to the booth.
Thank you. Hello. How are you?
We got good news and bad news and good news for you.
Let's start with
bad news, of course, being you just lost, which Chris got some pretty nice draws. He kind of smashed you 2-0.
You're so diplomatic.
I see him. The good news, though,
here and everyone who's a Magic player out there can relate to losing.
Now, how did that matchup feel from your perspective? Was there anything particularly interesting going on, or?
I have a stronger card advantage suite, and he is more aggressive with the mentor. So if I could keep him off a fast mentor, I usually win. He had like the turn 2 mentor right there, and like that first hand that I mulliganed in game 2. I mean, it was so tempting to be like Lotus Mentor, not be able to cast a spell for a long time, but I could misstep the plow and I could protect it with a force. And I'm thinking, how long can 4 damage from a monk and 2 inactive a mentor and 2 inactive monks like really go there? And I'm thinking, I think by 5 turns he'll have his own mentor. He will have gushed twice.
I think you were right.
Treasure. So,
and then the next draw looked decent.
If one of the cards were
sorry,
if it had a land, if I had a land, I would.
Sure.
If I had a land, I would have kept it.
For sure.
But with no land, it's not going anywhere. Like I probably wouldn't be able to cast Gush until turn 6.
Right. Now you may have lost to Chris, but you are 2-1. And even better than being 2-1, both of your wins were 2-0 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So by my count, our first tiebreaker when it comes to winning the group is game win percentage. You're sitting at 4-2 when it comes to games. Well, Chris is 2-1 as well, but he's 4-3 when it comes to games. Rich Shay took a game off of him, so you're ahead of Chris on game win percentage. Could be a 3-way tie, right? If Rodrigo wins this match, he's going to be a third player at 2-1, but Rodrigo's currently 2-2 on games. So he's either going to be 4-3 tied with Chris, or he's going to be 4-2 tied with you, and it'll go to the second tiebreaker, which is head-to-head. Congratulations, Brian. You've already clinched the group. You win, dude.
I won?
You win.
That's awesome. That's pretty
Yes. You are going to be the winner of this group. I mean, who gets second is up for grabs. In fact, if Rodrigo loses, he can fall all the way to last. So every other spot is up for grabs. But there's no way for you're already ahead of Chris, and there's no way for Rodrigo to do better than tying you on first tiebreakers, but losing on head-to-head.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that means you're going to be in the winners group. In fact, that means you're either going to be. I mean, the winners group, by the way, means worst case scenario, you'll wind up playing in the wild card group in the playoffs. So,
well, I look forward to playing against Rachel and Paul when that finally happens.
That's who's going to win the next 2 groups. I thought I was going to win next week. What's going on?
You'll come second.
All right. Can I be close second and get into the winners group anyway? So there are still big stakes on this match, by the way.
Yeah.
Rich Shay is 0-2. He can get out of last. If he beats Rodrigo, he ties Rodrigo, and then it's going to come down to tiebreakers between them. So if Rich wins at 2-0, then he's 3-4 to Rodrigo's 2-4. Rich is third, and Rodrigo goes to the losers group. If Rich wins at 2-1, then it comes down to the head-to-head tiebreaker. Rich is third, and Rodrigo goes to the losers group. So you don't want to go to the losers group. If you go to the losers group, then you're at risk of being relegated. It is, in fact, a pit you must climb out of. I can't do Rich's analogy justice.
And
but
it has real tangible consequences. I mean, we've seen with the long-standing player Stephen Menendian out of the group because he got relegated and didn't make it through the play-in tournament.
Right.
And I like him a lot, but it's no joke if you get relegated, like you really are out.
Yeah, no, when we set the whole league up back at the beginning, we all we wanted there to be real stakes, and that definitely counts as real stakes. So a lot on the line here. Rodrigo is either going to be tied for first but missing it on tiebreakers, or he's going to fall to last, depending on whether he can beat Rich Shay.
Well,
Yeah, this should be good.
I think Rich is favored, right? Because Leovold. I think Rich is probably favored against Rodrigo because Leovold is kind of not all that relevant against workshops.
I keep hearing Rodrigo say that his mana is great. Every time somebody criticizes him, he's like, no, the mana's great. The mana's great. I have no problem casting Leovold. I've got plenty of mana. I feel like this is the kind of match where we'll see for sure. Can he actually hold up versus a workshop deck?
The mana base isn't terrible. I see that the mana confluences, they make it weak to Wasteland, and of course casting Leovold is a huge problem. But in that matchup, like, you don't even want Leovold. You want to brainstorm it back. I've tested Bug against Workshop, and like having Leovold on the table, it's like, all right, you have a 3/3, and maybe you'll draw a card if they Wasteland you. And yes, you can't really profitably kill it with Walking Ballista or Triskelion, but you probably don't have to. You'll just be like, all right, I'll tap with my Ravager and my 3 Thopter tokens and the Foundry Inspector and all this, and whichever one you don't block will become lethal. And that will, of course, happen on turn 3 or 4. So I don't think Leovold is great in that matchup. I would actually board some out.
Interesting. No, I just see your point. So you think the mana base is actually okay, it's just that the card Leovold doesn't help him that much.
Yeah, I don't think he put together a terrible mana base. I mean, I see why you would say it's a little out there because it has so many colors, it has the mana confluences, but I think he did the right amount of calculation and sort of tweaked the numbers that it's all right.
All right, well, sounds like our players are ready. Let's get down to the match and see what happens. All right, players are drawing up their draws. Looks like Rich won the die roll, so he is on the play.
Ooh.
Wow, turn 1 Chalice and Sphere. Chalice doesn't actually shut off any Moxen in Rodrigo's hand, and Rodrigo has the Force of Will for the Sphere, so I feel like Rodrigo dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, I wonder Rich
on cue.
I wonder if I would have held that for Chalice 1, because I don't know.
Chalice 1 is yeah, it is definitely tempting against any of the blue cantrip decks to hold the Chalice. I feel like on the play, I'll drop Chalice 0. that's the, I mean, Chalice 1's great, but Chalice 0 on the play just destroys some draws.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
All right, Rich going for Tangle Wire. Looks like Rodrigo wants to. I was wondering if he was going to brainstorm or Vamp Tutor his response. Vamp Tutor is the answer. Interesting. What do you think he got there?
Yeah, Ancestral Recall.
Looks like. I think he got Tundra, and then Ancestral was the next card down because he didn't rearrange those cards when he drew them. He brainstormed into Tundra, then Ancestral, then Force of Will. And I actually think Vampiricking for a land is a totally reasonable play. It's actually a play Rodrigo recommended in the play-in tournament. He criticized somebody, I forget who, when he was doing commentary, for not using a tutor to go get a land. Just happened to draw the Ancestral for free. I like that play even better. Interesting.
That's a tough call. A lot of times I don't counter those things because I play decks that try to win despite the Hangerback Walker rather than decks that fall apart to the Hangerback Walker. And certainly if I'm playing a Vault Key deck, I'm like, okay, you can have your Hangerback Walker at 2. I understand it gets dangerous with a Ravager. There are some situations, but it's a tough call.
I liked Rodrigo's decision there because his hand is nothing but permission, and he's kind of trying to wait out this Tangle Wire right now.
Right, and if he had the Verdict in his, did he pitch it? The Verdict is profitable with the Hangerback Walker because,
and it's going to take forever to set up. Yeah. Now this Ballista is a little less clear. Oh, Rich is going to go for Sanka Tangle Wire instead of Walking Ballista. Oh, he's going to play the baby Walking Ballista. Okay. Interesting.
Powerful card.
Huh. Powerful enough that Rodrigo's going to use his other force. It's funny that the information of there being a second Tangle Wire, I think, affected that decision.
Mm-hmm. That situation can get out of control very quickly. And I'm sure Rodrigo is happy that he's playing Mana Confluence instead of City of Brass.
Yeah, you just can't play City anymore. Too bad.
One regret, though, is that if you have a Platinum Empyrean in play, you can't tap the Mana Confluence because you can't pay the life.
Oh, you can also you can Tendrils of Agony. The Storm trigger winds up above the City of Brass trigger.
That's true.
You can, that's the one situation I've seen where City's better.
Wow.
Painful.
Yeah. That's really risky, because if he starts attacking with that thing, there's always the risk that Rodrigo just flashes in a Snapcaster Mage during Tangle time.
Oh my god, he does have 4 Snapcaster Mages, and they're all lethal right now. I mean, It's tough to be lethal when there's a Walking Ballista that can ping them.
Exactly.
It is kind of a funny spot. Yeah, I think it's safe, given the fact that you can throw Ballista counters at any surprises.
True.
It's not exactly a Gear Hulk mana yet.
Still something to watch for, because if he decays the Ballista, like Rich has put himself in a position. I think Rich made the right call, though.
Yeah, I think you have to play it that way. But yes, he's at 2. Those Ancient Tombs do not exist right now. Rich's board is a Wasteland, a Mishra's Factory, and a Walking Ballista, and there's not a Wasteland anymore.
And I think that's the right call, too, to waste the land rather than to keep the Wasteland around to activate the factory without pain.
Yeah, the 5 a turn versus... What does it do to the clock? His next turn, he's going to attack him to 8. He's got the ability to throw 3 at him whenever.
But you never know what kind of horrible things are going to happen with a blue mage on their main phase. I would love to. You always want to keep them tangled up, preferably with a sphere, if you're a workshop player. So, interesting. This is the mana drain is kind of useless because Rich can't cast any spells, any realistic spells, because if he did, he would be committing harakiri.
You wanted him to tap differently to the Tangle Wire so he could Demonic Tutor? Next attack is lethal. This is it. Rodrigo needs an answer here. Right, next turn is attack for 3, throw 3 counters. Another blank Mox, so Demonic Tutor has to get a 1-mana answer. But Rodrigo does play swords, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of the White Splash in this deck, is to have access to swords to plowshares.
And the best thing he could rip from the top after that would be a Snapcaster Mage, because it would be able to block the Mishra's Factory and flashback something profitable, perhaps.
Man, what a crazy game. Swords hits the Walking Ballista just in time. Rich is now down to a Mishra's Factory that he can't activate because Ancient Tombs have eaten 18 of his 20 points of life.
Right.
Oh, funny. He can actually let the swords resolve and gain life if he wants the Ancient Tomb mana. Like, how many of these tokens do you throw?
That's what he's deliberating.
Like, 3 life is 2 Ancient Tomb activations. This is... What a weird spot. I think 3 life is better than 3 damage here. And obviously he can split the difference if he wants, but I think I take all 3 life.
He takes 1. Let's see, if he takes 1 life.
Yeah, let's say he lets himself tap Ancient Tomb for Ravager once.
Right.
Ravager next turn can attack for
lethal.
3, 4 if it eats the Mishra's Factory. Oh, okay. So throw 2, gain 1 life, put your opponent at 4. You get to attack with Ravager for 4 next turn.
Yeah.
Right? It eats the Chalice, it eats the Tangle Wire, it eats the Mishra's Factory, which activated itself. Or just draw another extra artifact off the top. No, that doesn't work.
That's unfortunate. That happens. I missed
why would he gain 2? I don't understand why he gained 2 life. I like 1 and 3 better. I like 3. Huh. I mean, Rich may still win this game.
Yeah.
It's not lethal yet, though, right? It's 1 short. 2, 3 looks 1 short to me. He does not have the life to cast that Tangle Wire. I think he needed to throw 1 additional ballista counter.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is good for him to keep the Chalice there and the factory. Because if something happens,
given that he can't kill him. Oh, and the turn mattered. Sword off the top on the last turn.
Good thing for Rich, he kept the factory untapped, and he can animate the factory and put the Ravager counters on the factory. But then he has to worry about being able to animate the factory. Oh, jeez.
Oh, Rodrigo. I mean, he's got to eat the Chalice, right? No, Rodrigo, make him eat the Chalice first. You're willing to take 2? Don't you take 2 there? Or like pass priority and say, are you going to eat your Chalice? I think I'm willing to take 2 there. I don't know. I guess he's worried about dying to a 1/1 ballista, which is relevant.
I'm very prudent when it comes to playing against shops. Like I play things very carefully. So I don't know if I would do damage because you never know what's going to come out of the shop deck anymore. We see that Rich is an uncastable Tangle Wire and Thorn.
Right.
But I never know what they have. You should see, I mean, some of these shops players, they play the craziest things.
Well, I mean, he knows the list. He's got access to the deck list. It's really a question of how scary is it. I guess being at 1 life, you don't need your Moxen. Maybe Rodrigo's play is fine. And now he's sitting on Mana Drain. Mana Drain into Torrential Gearhulk, in fact.
Yeah, he has the list, but
any mana oh wow. There was the Ballista that could potentially kill him from 1. Although basically, if Rich draws any mana source, Mishra's Factory just attacks him and kills him. Mm-hmm. All the mana drains in the world aren't going to save Rodrigo. If Rich can ever draw a land, what is going on?
And the workshop can't be used.
God! Tropical Island. Now he's 1 off of a Gearhulk as a flash blocker.
Dear.
Not a land! Force of Will. That doesn't help. Any land is just the game.
You know what Rodrigo could have done? He could have played the Mox with the Chalice trigger on the stack, forced it, drained the Force, and then played Torrential Gearhulk in his post. Or in
Wow, now he's got Gearhulk mana. Unbelievable. Rich Shay split the difference on that Swords to Plowshares to where he couldn't quite attack for lethal, but he didn't have enough life to tap Ancient Tomb twice. Either fork, either 1 or 3, I think would have won him the game. But he split the difference, and now he's going to die to this Mishra's Factory. He dies to this Gearhulk. That was a crazy game.
Ravager math is very difficult. I mean, Rich has a PhD in, I believe, mathematics. So it just goes to show that no one out there, if you ever have difficulty with Ravager and figuring things out in the heat of the moment, it is very difficult. Like, I was a calculus tutor myself, and when I'm involved with Ravager, Hanger Back, all that math, and especially when there's a Triskelion in there.
It was just 1, 2, or 3. We were doing integer arithmetic.
But no, there are many different implications of choosing each, and you have to think about what can happen next.
Fair.
My rule of thumb anymore is when I play a Pithing Needle, I don't even think about it. I just name Walking Ballista. So I've tried naming Ravager before, and then I've been like shot by the Walking Ballista. So that's the only thing I can advise as a rule of thumb.
I guess he had 4 amounts of life he could gain there, right? He could either gain 0, 1, 2, or 3 life. 1 and 3 would both have won in the game, but he gained 2. Crazy. This has not been Rich's night. I'm sure Rich has also got to be a little tilted from the way he lost to Chris. He's not enjoying being 0-2 with a deck that he knows is good. This is basically the deck Rich just won the Power 9 Challenge with.
Right. It's a very strong deck, and even though I did very well against it tonight, in my testing, it was unfavorable for me. So I was dreading the matchup, but things just happened to work out. Somehow, despite having all of those lock pieces, when I played against Rich, as we're seeing here, there were no thorns, no spheres, and those are the things that really screw me up. Without the sphere effects on the table, the Blue Mage can just do whatever they want willy-nilly. It's unfortunate here that the Crucible is going to be countered because...
Yeah, Rich has got Crucible Wasteland, which can be devastating. Rodrigo doesn't even have basics in his list because he's got this 4-color Leovold mana base.
Right.
What Rodrigo does have, though, is Force of Will. Or Mana Drain.
And Mana Drain.
First. Did Rich pass without casting Crucible? He did. He just said, never mind, I'm not going to cast my Crucible.
I think what Rich might be thinking here is that he wants to draw a sphere, preferably after the Lotus is gone, or at least to force the Lotus to be sacrificed to counter it.
Yep.
Because I think he knows that the Crucible isn't going to last that long.
Well, I mean, the guy goes land, Lotus, go. He's got something. Maybe it's a Mana Drain, maybe it's a Force of Will, maybe it's both. I think Rich correctly knew that he couldn't resolve a Crucible there, and it's so important to this game that he wanted a second threat, just like you said. And now look, there's Thorn of Amethyst, which presumably he's going to lead with. He's hoping that will bait the permission spell and he can stick a Crucible. Note that Thorn only costs 1 because of the Foundry Inspector. You have to force this if you're Rodrigo, I think. You just don't want to operate in a world where they've got Thorn.
Right.
And
although, luckily for Rodrigo, he's not a Gush check because then the Thorn is really miserable. True. I think Rodrigo's deck can probably weather it a little bit better, but it's still really obnoxious.
Rodrigo chooses not to Mana Drain the Crucible because he's holding a Nature's Claim.
Mm-hmm.
So Rich is currently happy. He did manage to resolve. Oh, wow. Mid-combat Snapcaster off the Lotus. Flashback my Ancestral and block and trade. Does that qualify as value? That's a lot of value.
Yes.
Yeah. I like it.
But Rodrigo's not completely out of it yet because he has 2 lands. They're both duals, and Rich is a wasteland. And if Rich's next few draws are good, he can claw back into the game.
True. It basically needs another Crucible.
Yeah, like if Rodrigo, well, okay.
He's going to time walk.
Drain mana.
Yeah, he's hoping to draw a land so that he can leave up Drain or draw into a Force of Will. Smart use of the time walk. May as well cycle it in that spot. Ugh, Ravager. Not nothing, but... do you force? Oh, Rodrigo says no. All I know I've got is a tropical, but...
Oh, there's the son of a... See, his mana base is perfect.
Evidently.
Oh, interesting.
And presumably Plow as a response is going to happen?
I don't know, maybe I would drain that.
Oh, okay. Reasonable. And now it's time to dig through time, and Rich is out of gas. 2 workshops and a Mox Jet. They're not going to get this job done. Wow, Rich is going to go 0-3? I did not expect Rich to go 0-3 in this group. He's just been on such an amazing run in Vintage for the last couple of months. 2 back-to-back Power 9 championships, but he is going to find himself in the losers group next set. And yeah, it does 3-way tie at 2-1 with a cue the controversy about the way the tiebreakers are set up. We set it up. It's been clear since I started inviting people to the season. It's game win percentage first, then it's head-to-head. And game win percentage says it's a tie between you and Rodrigo. Then we go to head-to-head, and you beat Rodrigo.
Well,
I guess that's less controversial than you beating Chris on game win percentage when Chris had beat you head-to-head.
I don't want to be too celebratory right now because I'm sad that Rich didn't do it as well because he's a great player, certainly deserving. Fair. And it just goes to show in this format in Magic, being a great player means that maybe you have a 60% win rate against the field. And that means that there's still a 40% chance that still being the best of the best, that the chips will not fall for you in a way that is favorable.
Now, I should point out, by the way, Rich is still live to win the season. It's not like he's been relegated. It just means because he's in the losers group, he's at risk of being relegated. And the only way for him to make the playoffs is to win that group and then also win the wild card group. So he's not out of it, but he's not in as good a shape as the 3 of you.
I thought I was going to lose. I knew that Rich would be on shops because we figure, there are 12 people. This is what I'm playing, and he told me what he was playing. So I knew he would be on shops, and I thought maybe Chris would be on shops too. I didn't know I was going to be playing him also until the names were released, and I didn't know what Rodrigo was on. But there was a chance that it could have been me and 3 shop players from where I stood yesterday, and I thought that would have been just a disaster.
Fair.
But I think the audience in that situation would think of me as the hero. And the shop.
At least you would have had that going for you.
David versus Goliath. Mm-hmm.
I guess Chris Pakula is going to wind up 3rd in this group despite being 2-1. I guess there's no way he's going to be the worst 3rd place finisher at 2-1. So it seems like he has safely avoided the losers group. He'll wind up in the middle group, I'm sure. And then it'll come down to tiebreakers as to whether Rodrigo winds up. Does he get to group 1 or does he wind up in group 2 with a 2nd at 2-1? All right, Jace the Mind Sculptor should clean this up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to go into Fate Seal mode.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense in this matchup.
Yeah. Because the Snapcaster is going to take forever. Wow, that is really confident to be like, I have the Nature's Claim, so you can have the Revoker. I guess it makes sense because what you're really worried about is a Walking Ballista off the top.
So much life, though. It's going to take like 15 attacks from that Snapcaster to win this.
I might have brainstormed there because you really want a hard counter.
Interesting.
Because
but Fate Sealing does get Jace out of range of any Walking Ballista shenanigans or Triskelion shenanigans. It allows him to, Snapcaster the Nature's Claim. Well, I guess that's not a great answer to Ballista, but the loyalty on Jace is relevant. That's all I'm saying. Also, the ultimate on Jace.
Rodrigo has
the game than 15 attacks from Snapcaster.
Yeah, the game is mostly locked up, but there are always those corner case scenarios that you want to think, what could happen that is so bizarre, but can happen that could get Rich out of this situation. And drawing 2 or 3 Walking Ballastas in a row is
hard. It's hard to do when you're getting Fate Sealed.
Well, like I said, things that can possibly happen but aren't
Sure.
likely to happen. You fate seal, you see a walking ballast, so you put it on the bottom. He draws a walking ballast to.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the odds of that versus the odds of brainstorming your way into a hard counter. I think you're better off looking at their library and just drawing naturally from yours. It certainly has worked out. I mean, I don't want to be results oriented, but the man does now have a mana drain.
It just meant that one turn when he had to, after he had to use the Nature's Claim on the Phyrexian Revoker.
Yeah,
That's
it would take a lot of math to know for sure, but I think my intuition agrees with Rodrigo's.
And it's complicated because the Blue Mage can draw things that aren't hard counters but lead to them. Like he can draw things that draw a lot of cards or filter through a lot of cards.
All right, Rodrigo wins. Rich Shay has seen enough. And that brings us to a wrap on Group A. Congratulations to you, Brian.
Thank you.
You are the one of the 3 players who got a pair of green thumbs. Rich, unfortunately, did not acquire a green thumb, and tiebreakers say you are the winner. Rodrigo gets second. Chris gets third. We'll see how the other groups play out to know precisely where they're going to land. But certainly, you're going to be in the winners group, and Rich is going to be in the losers group.
I'm very glad to hear that. I look forward to it. I'll try to play something spicy.
I like it. Yes. More spice, please.
This was a very orthodox deck. And it's a revision of Sylvan Mentor. And I actually was looking at a list by Hank Zhang. Hank Zhang has really taken up the archetype.
Okay.
And I liked what he did a lot. So that was my new baseline for this newer version that I had. So kudos to Hank. The list worked out really well.
Fair enough. All right, guys. If you come back next week, you can watch Group B take to the battlefield. Decks have already been submitted. I know what I'm playing. I don't know what anybody else is playing, but I'm looking forward to playing personally. And then Group C after that, and then we'll shuffle all the groups up again. So thanks for hanging out, Brian. Glad we got the chance to get you into the booth to do some commentary. And we'll see everybody. Yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Likewise, my pleasure.
Thanks for watching.